In case you haven't figured it out, my name's Gwen Bragg, and the paintings that are here on this floor and up the stairway and on the sides and so forth are my work. It's what I call my Stone on Stone series. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is putting water and paint on this side of the paper and then flipping it over on this piece of plexiglass, putting more paint and water on the back side and then flipping it over again, and continuing to flip the paint so that it's a way of mixing and creating textures that I think is unlike what I can do normally with a brush. I am going to slowly and methodically take an 1.5 inch brush. What I'm doing right now is simply wetting the paper, and you can see how the paper starts to curve and curl. As water sinks into the surface, it begins to expand, and usually at different rates, so you end up with wrinkling. What I'm waiting for now is for this to start to look as though it's relaxing. See it flatten a bit? I have to be particularly careful that the outside edges are wet enough. Okay, it's still a bit wrinkly, but I don't want to bore you to death, so we're going to start with getting some paint on this side. I'm going to be using primarily just straight pigment. What I'm putting on now is ultramarine, but that makes no difference. It's really where I put it and the fact that I'm putting it on as thick as I will be that's far more important. This is cadmium orange. And I'm going to throw a little bit of cadmium red in it. These paintings of mine began with some fairly muted tones and developed, I think, into far more colorful pieces. All right, there's color everywhere. You're going to see it upside down, but that doesn't matter. There's what I've got so far. And here on my plexiglass, I'm going to put it down. Then again with just clear water, I'm going to wet the back. I've introduced into here some colors that are not in the front. This is an extremely invasive, powerful color. It's called Windsor Green. Here's Windsor Blue. This is Phthalo Crimson. It's a Grumbacher color. I'm going to pick this up and turn it. Can you see some of the textures that are starting to show up into this? What it's doing is I'm mixing color. Remember I said I wasn't going to put any green on the other side? The green is going to start to show up. Here it is. One of the things I want to do here is try very carefully when I put this down not to trap air bubbles in it. All right, look what is starting to happen. Remember, no green was ever put on this side. All right, and can you see how I was using almost pure pigments? Rarely was I using anything that I would call a neutral. My choice of color, with the exception of keeping this cool and this warm, is pretty much random. And what I'm going to do now is in this area, I'm going to start pulling off some shapes. What I'm doing is looking at my photo and seeing where the light is actually falling, and I'm lifting. These are just natural sponges, little sea sponges. And what I'm aiming for is that light that sort of spills through that doorway. Now, what I do see, however, is that some of this area in here hasn't enough paint on it. So I'm going to add more. This is more of my ultramarine and more of my cerulean. And I've got a big section over here that needs to go very dark, so let's see. And then flip again. Okay, so now I've got texture. I don't know if this is going to show you enough so that you can start to see the light spilling through that doorway or not. But what I will end up doing is coming back into this particular area and developing some of these wonderful little triangular shapes. Here's another trick that I like using. With some of these, particularly to get a little bit more texture, I will use salt. This is probably my favorite ingredient. This is sea salt from Trapani, Sicily, where they have been extracting salt from the sea since the time of the Phoenicians. There's something about painting ruins and using old salt that I just really like. And just a few of these large grains in a few places, and they really are scattered on at random, will give me particular effects. Thank you.